Planning a wedding and feeling overwhelmed? Simply Eloped makes it easy. With over 14,000 elopements and vow renewals planned and 37 stunning U.S. destinations, the planners at Simply Eloped have you covered. Their all-inclusive packages connect you with over 700 top-tier vendors, cutting stress, cost, and complexity. And no two packages are alike because they customize it for you. Your story deserves ease. Let them handle the hard stuff. You just show up and say, I do. Start at simplyeloped.com.
Today on CityCast DC, happy Friday! We're talking about whether DC's airspace is about to get more dangerous less than a year after the DCA crash. Plus more Trayon White shenanigans, Sandwich Guy Jurors, and in a members-only fourth segment, we'll talk about Democrats boycotting certain DC restaurants. I'm here with the 51st's Martin Austermuhle and CityCast's Annie Reese. Today is Friday, December 12th. I'm Michael Schaefer. Here's what DC's talking about. Before we get into it, it's the last day of our membership campaign, but it will be a much better last day if as many of you as possible who are listening and who've been relying on us for the last few years sign up to become CityCast members. You will be doing yourself a favor and you'll be doing CityCast a great service.
Absolutely. You know, we're in this season of giving when you're thinking about gifts you may give to family and friends, when you think about ways to give back to your community. And we think that CityCast really is a big way to really engage deeply with your community. We try to provide high quality local journalism, both podcast and newsletter. And it's really never been a more important time to be deeply engaged with DC. So you can do that at membership.citycast.fm.
You know, we have these membership events pretty regularly where we will take over a bar or something. And sometimes we have programming where we'll discuss, we'll tape an episode, or we will be talking about actual things that people in DC like to talk and argue about. And sometimes it's just social. But either way, people come up and I don't know, they have engaged really pretty deeply with stuff we've talked about. And in some cases, they've said I don't really like what you said that time. And in other cases, they've said right on.
Which Mike loves, to be clear. Get into an argument with Mike. He loves
right.
it.
And other times they say you're the smartest podcaster I've ever listened to. But either way, it's it's pretty amazing and humbling, and that we have actually set out to try to connect people to the city and connect people to each other, and we achieve that. And I think it's a thing that it is a lot of work. Most of it not done by me and the folks whose voices you hear. So the more you can help us, the better that work can be.
Yeah. And, a lot of ink has been spilled and a lot of minutes of words have been said about how seismic a year 2025 was for DC in the wake of Trump 2.0 and the federal takeover and the shrinking of the federal government and all of these massive seismic things. And next year looks to be more of the same. And we have also a whole spate of local elections that are going to be hugely consequential and really going to usher in a new era of local DC politics. So it's a great time to become a member. It's never been a more important time to support local journalism. And we really need you. And if you are already a member, thank you so much. But if you're not, you can become a member at membership.citycast.fm. We got this wonderful note from Mark V. Said, Mike and Bridget are the best. I love the deep insights, the straight dope, and the DC love. Not afraid to get into heavy issues, not afraid to bring the joy and to get good and nerdy too. Thank you. I totally agree.
So listen, think of us, as Annie said, this was a seismic year. Next year will be a seismic year too. Think of us as your seismologists. And here at the end of this year, help yourself make a plan to plug into your local community next year. I hope we're a part of that. And if you already are a member, thank you. And if you already are a member, consider giving a gift to someone else and bring them into our world too.
Totally. We have this option this year where you can actually give membership as a gift. You go to membership.citycast.fm/gifts. You can give a 6-month or 1-year version to someone you love that you want to be more plugged into DC. And the swag we have this year are these really cool artist designed postcards that feature 4 scenes from things we really love about DC that also connect back to some of our favorite episodes and articles we've done. Think like Home Rule, the Metro and Brutalism, Porch Fest, and bike lanes, which used to be one of the big things we fought about before all this federal stuff. But anyway, seriously, become a member. Thank you so much. Membership.citycast.fm.
All right, let's do it. Hey, Martin.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm good, man. Hey, Annie.
Hello.
So you remember back in January, there was a deadly, horrific plane crash of a plane coming into National Airport. And it turned out there was some pretty crowded airspace there over the Potomac because in addition to your regular commercial aviation, this is the capital of the country. There's a lot of military around here. There is a lot of different kinds of aviation flying around, and that was what caused a collision. So after that, some new rules of the road or rules of the air came down that would deconflict some of this space. Now in the sort of snuck into the National Defense Authorization Act, there is a measure that would reverse some of this. And it is, as you can imagine, raising a lot of hackles from like the mayor of DC issued a statement this week blasting it. Safety advocates are displeased, I think we can say.
I'm not thrilled as a nervous flyer.
Annie Reese, a nervous flyer, is not thrilled. Martin, as a bicyclist, is probably indifferent. But Martin, tell me what's going on.
I mean, yeah, you did the summary. I mean, there was a horrific crash, involved a military helicopter and a commercial airliner. And they recognized that DC's airspace is too crowded. And they also realized after the fact that there were a lot of near misses over many, many years that were kind of underreported or not reported. So that there was one crash kind of, I think, undersold the severity of the problem, right? That was a clear, like a terrible outcome, but like there's been a problem for a while. Now we potentially might go back to the same problem. They're going to start re-allowing these military flights, these training exercises, which obviously, like you said, the mayor is concerned about. The NTSB's director came out and blasted the decision, which I think is a brave move. Right. And it's a pretty brave move in this day and age of Trump and independent regulatory bodies who may not be so independent anymore, that this director of the NTSB was like, this is a terrible idea.
She said it essentially gives the military unfettered access to fly through Washington's airspace without broadcasting their aircraft's location to other pilots. So who's behind, like, who wants this? Now, obviously, like, people in the military want to do maximal training or whatever. They're going to want, as much leeway as possible. But on the legislative side, because all of these legislators represent people who might someday be flying into the capital of the country, who is pushing this and what is their reasoning?
I mean, again, I don't follow Congress as closely as maybe I should sometimes, but I honestly feel when it comes to the military, I generally feel like Congress defers to what the military says. I mean, you can look at the growing Pentagon budget. You can see that the military rarely takes cuts, and the military often gets what it wants. So I think there was probably an argument made that we need the airspace to do training. We'll be more careful next time. And lawmakers believed it.
There's also, as you guys have been talking about, this has been such a long time coming for DCA. And was it back in 2023, they relaxed the perimeter rule, giving exceptions to some flights that were, these longer haul distances that DCA hadn't had. And I was talking to a friend who is a pilot. He only flies cargo planes, but he talked about how over the years, DCA is the market potential out of DCA is huge.
Who wants to commute to Dulles and BWI?
Well, but DCA is so much closer. And that was like one of the reasons that a lot of lawmakers were greenlighting this, right? Like adding more and more flights.
Well, so right. So in the old days, when like the kind of plane that could fly from here to California required a much longer runway than the kind that just had to fly to Boston or something, that's not true anymore on the aircraft side. But it is, what has not changed and cannot change is that there is only a finite amount of airspace, so it's less about, I think, the perimeter than like the DCA can only accommodate a certain number of flights at a time, whether those flights are going to California or Dubai or just to Boston. Obviously, I much prefer to fly out of DCA. I mean, you just take the metro. It's quick. You don't, this
by far the best airport.
The schlep. And like they're kind of priced accordingly. Like you can usually get tickets for less in exchange for having to spend more time commuting. But like the airlines are pretty powerful, obviously want to have as many people flying the way they want to fly as possible.
I think one element of the story that I'm a little concerned about that I think is not being talked about is that since August, when kind of Trump did his little takeover of DC, increased a lot of federal police presence, the one thing that we saw an increase of was also federal helicopters flying over the city. The Park Police was flying a lot more often. Homeland Security had a helicopter flying out over DC a lot more often. And at least in one case, the Department of Homeland Security was using a helicopter that they weren't blasting out their signal as helicopters do, which is usually publicly accessible information. And some local residents were raising concerns about that. And it feels like, again, I think the chances of another accident happening, generally speaking, lowish. But by throwing another couple helicopters in the air there and not having them broadcast where they are and that sort of critical information, I think you're just increasing the chances.
What was their explanation for why they weren't broadcasting where they were?
Basically, the way I understand it, so there's this funny community of helicopter watchers in DC. They're like extremely nerdy, but they're very deep in the weeds on watching helicopters and identifying them because they think there's so many in DC. It's our kind of people, right? DC
So
does
DC.
Weeds really well.
The best.
Yeah, but some of these residents were digging in on the Homeland Security helicopter that they couldn't identify on public maps and kind of using public data. And the most they could get out of Homeland Security, and the most a journalist got out of Homeland Security, was that it's not illegal for us to do this. It's not. I mean, they can technically, under certain circumstances, under certain missions, they can fly without broadcasting their location.
Because undocumented immigrant contractors driving around in their van have sophisticated technology so that they could know where a helicopter is unless the helicopter doesn't share its location.
Exactly. And that was the counterpoint. Is like, listen, the sort of stuff that you're doing is not high-level national security stuff. You're literally flying over DC to, in theory, scare criminals and scare undocumented immigrants. I mean, okay.
So wait, what is the state of this effort? It's in the NDAA, which is obviously like a pretty complicated piece of legislation, but the reason people put things in there, and this is at least, related to national defense, but is because at the end the thing has to pass or not pass as one big unholy thing. So where is it, and is there a chance that this gets knocked out of it?
It's passed the House, and then it's heading to the Senate next week. And I think the chance of whether it gets knocked out of it is a great question. I think Senator Tim Kaine is kind of at the center of that because he's on the committee, right? And he had talked before about how kind of torn up he was about the Black Hawk helicopter crash.
And I got to say, and this one at least is a Virginia issue too. So there is some representation there, but this is the kind of thing, the weird measure buried in an enormous bill that DC's congressional delegate, Eleanor Holmes Norton, was once very good at ferreting out and calling attention to and sort of raising alarms about before it was too late. And once again, that doesn't seem to have happened here.
No, and she was I think she still is something of a ranking member, a relatively high-ranking member on a transportation subcommittee. I mean, she does, like you said, in the past, she would have been able to at least raise kind of attention to this and potentially get it removed before it even got to the House floor. But more than that, she's in a position that she probably has some power to actually make that happen. And given her current state and how effective she is or is not as a DC delegate, obviously it's unfortunate to see that maybe, she could have done more.
If you are still looking for a great gift to give to your family or your friends this holiday season, consider an Aura frame, which is the best way to stay connected with people you love. My dad is a photojournalist, and when I was growing up, we always had incredible photos of the family around the house. The ones that were kind of guaranteed to make us laugh and transport us back to those moments. And these days, we take so many photos on our phones, but then those photos often don't ever leave our phones or our Instagram pages. So enter Aura Frames. This is a frame that allows you to give a loved one a photo frame and then add your favorite pictures to it remotely. And you can even preload the photos before it ships so that the gift is ready to go when your loved one opens it. Plus, every frame comes prepackaged in a premium gift box with no price tag. You might be someone that lives near your family, but I'm not. And so I'm always looking for ways that I can create moments for our family to still feel like we're nearby. So for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, which were named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code CityCast at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code CityCast. This deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell it fast, so order yours now and get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is sponsored by Babbel. The idea of learning a new language can be scary. I felt overwhelmed by that. I bet you have too. I'm CityCast CEO David Plotz, and studies show that up to 90% of people trying to learn a new language give up. 90%. Fortunately, Babbel's built so that it's really easy to get started and really easy to stick with it. They understand that people learn differently. So maybe you can dive into a podcast on Babbel when you don't feel like a quick lesson, or you can speak out loud to get practice in, or you can explore courses based on specific topics and even create your own customized review lists, all within the Babbel app. Babbel has made learning a language all about small steps with real wins and progress you can actually track and feel. Bite-sized lessons that fit easily into your daily routine and are also easy to remember. Just 10 minutes a day is enough to start seeing real results. I've been learning Spanish with Babbel, and it's helped when I've traveled in Mexico, and it helps me eavesdrop on my son and my girlfriend when they speak Spanish to try to fool me. No más, mi corazón. However you learn best, by listening, speaking, reading, or writing, Babbel adapts to your style and keeps you motivated with personalized learning plans, real-time feedback, and progress tracking. And right now, here's a special limited time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
All right. Hey, let's go. Martin, you had another thing you were covering this week or talking about. Our old friend Trayon White, DC council member from Ward 8, currently under indictment for various almost comical forms of corruption, managed to regain his seat after being expelled, winning like about a third of the vote, but that was enough. And now, even with his trial looming, more ethics complaints about him.
Yeah. What's the story
I
there?
mean, in the grand scheme of things, this is relatively minor compared to being charged for bribery and going to trial in federal court. Basically, in short, all elected officials in the district, most government officials actually, have to file annual or biannual financial disclosure reports. I mean, this is basic stuff saying, do I own second properties? Do I invest heavily in certain sectors? So the public can know whether this person is doing something they shouldn't be doing, or if there's a conflict of interest, that sort of stuff. And again, members of the council have to file these. They often file them. They rarely include a whole lot of interesting information. But Trayon White, Councilmember Trayon White, has not filed his for the last year and a half. Now, again, compared to federal bribery, not a big deal. But the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability in D.C. is moving forward with charging him. Now, again, the outcome of this would potentially be a fine, a slap on the wrist, a kind of like, please don't do this again. But it just kind of is one of those interesting things that, given what he's facing, what he's going through, and what he's accused of, this kind of minor paperwork process of just saying, yes, I own a home. Yes, my partner does so-and-so. Yes, I own stocks, or no, I don't own stocks. He hasn't even managed to do that. Now, I've been trying to find out
why would he, I mean, what incentive would he have to do it? Like, clearly, like, enough voters don't care about the which he's denied, but these federal bribery charges. Um, uh, if it's just going to be a slap on the wrist, and the political system doesn't punish him, the powers that be within DC Democratic politics couldn't even muster the energy to push one of the multiple challengers of him out of the race so that he could actually have to run one-on-one with someone who would have beaten him. They didn't even have the stones to do that. Other colleagues, having kicked him out, are now welcoming him back. I don't see a whole lot of incentive there for someone to feel a sense of opprobrium if they violate ethics rules.
No, you're totally right. I mean, a lot of these rules, a lot of the ethics rules are, there are consequences. The consequences aren't particularly significant. They're more significant on kind of ground level, like lower level employees. Like if you're a lower level employee and you are caught, doing something on company time that you shouldn't be doing, you could be fined thousands of dollars. If you're a sitting council member who never files a financial disclosure report, which you're required to file, again, you might pay a couple $100s worth of fine, but it also comes after months and months of process. I mean, he goes through a quasi-trial in the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability, which won't happen until next year. Ironically, it might coincide with his federal trial. So just imagine he's facing a federal bribery trial and then maybe have to run over to the DC building and kind of answer questions about why he's not filing his financial disclosure reports.
Wait, did he say anything about why he didn't file?
He is not. I reached out to his attorney. He has a different attorney for this than he has for his federal case. And his attorney has not responded. I mean, I had heard someone was asking me, he's like, does this have anything to do with the allegations that he took bribes? Like, would he have to disclose bribes on the financial disclosure report?
That's an interesting question.
I'm pretty sure you don't have to disclose bribes. But then again, it's like the joke that they always make that if you don't catch someone on bribery, you catch someone on tax fraud, for not disclosing bribes on tax forms. So I don't know. But his lawyer has unfortunately not responded to me.
Back in February, we know the council voted unanimously to expel Trayon White. He obviously won his seat back. I know that we're a ways out, especially since the federal trial got pushed to March instead of January. But do you kind of see the writing on the wall that depending on what happens in the trial or these charges, that like a vote to expel might happen again?
Well, that's the thing. Depending on if he were convicted and it's a felony charge, if he were convicted of a felony, he gets immediately expelled. Like they don't have to vote to do it. It's just written in law that no one who's been convicted of a felony can serve on the council. So should that come to pass in March, they don't even have to go through the process of voting. It just happens. And after that, he's barred from rejoining the council at all. So he couldn't even run for office again, at least not in the council.
But look, there are consequences to doing things wrong, like in the legal system, right? In the case of a federal bribery charge, you face jail time, huge financial hits, and you get automatically expelled. And in the case of like city ethics violations, it's obviously much less of a big deal. But the other consequence is supposed to be, I hate to sound old-fashioned, but in a decent society, it's supposed to be like the opprobrium of your colleagues and friends. And, they kicked him out. But, when he re-won, Janice Lewis George, who was going to run for mayor, was the one who opted to swear him in. That suggests to me that if nothing else, she's not going to join in a casting out of, symbolic excommunication of him from like polite society. And this is a person who's clearly like thinking about winning a plurality of votes from DC Democrats. So that says to me that someone who's like pretty smart and thinking about being popular has decided like there's an upside to being nice to Trayon White.
Well, I also think it generally, I think there's an unfortunate kind of lack of adherence to or respect for what is written in law within the DC government generally, especially at the highest levels. One small example is under DC law, like an agency head, the head of like the Department of Public Works, let's say, or Department of Health, they're supposed to be nominated and confirmed by the council. Usual process, it happens all the time. But in the meantime, they can serve in an interim capacity. They're like the kind of the director to be, but not yet confirmed. But they can only do that for 6 months. There's city agency directors who have been in those positions for years. And the council doesn't do anything about it, even though city law says that they in those positions cannot be paid for the work that they are doing at that level. But no one steps up to say anything about it. And every time I've asked these questions, they're just like, it's not really that big of a deal. We think this director's actually quite good. So like, what's the big whoop? So I think this general sense of like, well, it seems to be a minor violation. Why should we bother with it? Is kind of baked into lots of levels of the DC government, unfortunately, in my opinion.
All right, so also in the criminal law adjacent news this week, we've seen a couple of stories where they've finally talked to jurors in the trial of the man who will henceforth and forever be known as Sandwich Guy, who was arrested for throwing a sandwich at some federal law enforcement in D.C. The Trump administration wanted to make an example of him. They did like a military-style arrest of him. He lost his job in the federal government and was put on trial. First, they wanted to indict him on federal charges. The grand jury wouldn't bite. Then they put him on trial for misdemeanor charges, and the jury pretty quickly acquitted, and had a hard time keeping a straight face while they did. And this seems to me to be like, I think a lot of people in this moment, when people are worried about authoritarianism and encroachment on democracy, and we've seen a lot of institutions, universities, law firms, not behaving in ways that suggest they're going to like stand up for the stuff they had professed to believe in. And the courts, the federal courts not being an especially consistent check on the executive. This is a rare case where actually jurors, people who would probably rather be at work or with their kids, or, people who've come down in the ritual we've all done to the H. Carl Moultrie courthouse and been pulled into a jury, actually being the people who say enough, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I also just think this was such a fun story that it felt like I at least needed this kind of like everything you're saying that is on this operating on this high level, Mike. And then also just
that's what they tell me.
That's what they tell you. Yeah. And then just kind of a fun piece that is a confirmation that was sort of the thing that we all wanted to know, which is just basically this was ridiculous, right? And as a juror, you were in the room, and that was the exact vibe that you were that you were feeling as well. I just took a lot of pleasure in hearing from some of these anonymous jurors and hearing their deliberations that were all things that one could infer, but there was just something kind of delicious about reading it.
But to me, it also proved that the value, kind of that civic warmth you feel when you think about jury duty and the value of being judged by your peers. These people took the job seriously. I mean, I reading the stories about the interviews that they did with these jurors, there were jurors who were holding out at first on declaring the guy not guilty because they legitimately thought, well, he did throw something at a police officer.
Right. They didn't want to set a precedent.
Right. You don't want to set a precedent, and it's technically against the law. Assault is defined extremely broadly. And whether it's a sandwich, a crappy sandwich at that, or, something much more threatening, the point is it can still be assault.
Would you have had a different view of that if it was a high quality, high priced DC artisanal sandwich?
I mean, I would have questioned the defendant more than anyone else, not so much the police officer there. But I think the point here is that I think for as much as jurors could be, people were saying, oh, this is jury nullification, they're trying to make a point. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but they still did the job that they were tasked with doing. They didn't declare him not guilty after deliberating for 10 minutes. They spent hours doing this. So they clearly were discussing the ins and outs of the law. They went back to the judge and asked for clarification on what a part of the law actually meant. And I think it had something to do with a potential harm that someone could have suffered from the assault. But yeah, I think it all comes down to this was a stupid prosecutorial move. They shouldn't have charged him with a federal offense. They should not have charged him with a felony and then try to get it in as a misdemeanor. DC has the same law. as a felony, as a misdemeanor. It's much more clearly defined. And honestly, had they charged him with misdemeanor assault on a police officer under DC's laws, they probably would have gotten a guilty verdict. But the jurors would also have known that the guy would have paid a fine and life would have gone on. Whereas under the federal law, he could have gone to jail. So there's a lot of layers there.
You're sort of tiptoeing up to the unpopular opinion, but he was totally guilty. He threw a sandwich at someone. You're not supposed to do that.
Well, right, but guilty of what charge?
Whether he should have been prosecuted or not, a different story.
Totally.
And whether this should have been done in this like insane military capacity, another different story. And I would probably have voted like the jury, but I like the 10 in the jury, not the 2. But I think it was nullification. And that seems, it's not a great way to run a country, but at the moment, it seems like the right thing to do.
And it's funny, you walk out of DC Superior Court, like into the main plaza that's in front of it, and at the far end, there's some bike racks and there's a light post. And at the bottom of a light post, someone wheat pasted a sign that says "Nullify Fascism" on it. The clear indication being there, the juries should engage in some nullification when it comes to laws that they think are unjust or prosecutions they think are unjust. Obviously, that can be a much more problematic thing. It's a difficult discussion, but I still feel like that's kind of where we are right now with these sorts of things. Like, it's not just, how silly it all was, is that there's a deeper question about what jurors should or should not do when it comes to events or incidents that they think are either unjust or just completely silly. Like this is much more on the silly side, right?
And, I think he'll never have to pay for another sandwich in DC again, if he wants to make himself a public figure.
Just gotta wear that pink polo everywhere is the problem.
If Subway really wants to make the move we all want them to make, they should make him like their spokesperson for the year or something. The new Jared. Actually, we should not mention the new Jared. That is not a good.
It's true.
Not a good reference point.
Fair enough.
But also the fact that, like, as part of the trial, the police officer said, and I actually got a copy of one of these, that other cops were making patches that said felony footlong and had an image of the guy throwing the sandwich. Even cops were joking about this. And I feel like Subway needs to lean into the felony footlong thing and kind of do something with it, because like we're all waiting for it, people.
I want to give a big thank you to our newest CityCast DC neighbors, Susie Z and Alex J. Thank you for your support. Today, paid subscribers like Susie Z and Alex J get a bonus 4th roundup chat. We're going to talk about national Democrats supporting local restaurant unions, or more complicatedly for diners here, the restaurants that Democrats are supposed to be boycotting. If you want to be sure you always get the full episode, please become a member. Head to membership.citycast.fm and sign up. It's only $10 a month or $100 for the year. Members get ad-free listening, exclusive member events, and an extra events newsletter each and every week. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Annie Reese, Julia Karen, and Ash Durbin. Newsletter editors Kayla Cote-Stemmerman and Annie Reese herself wrote our fabulous newsletter Hey DC this week. And our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan, with additional music from Hip Color, Tampore, Lucid Tides, and DM from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. If you enjoyed the show, why not listen to us on your long commute to Dulles? We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.